Well, hello, I can see you all joining. So I'm just waiting for you all to arrive. I don't want to start too soon, but hello and thank you so much for joining us in this webinar that's a part of Girls on Track UK and Motorsport UK's month-long theme on coaching and sports psychology. Your requests for this subject have been in abundance and your voices have been heard. So thank you to those who are already a contributing part of Girls on Track UK Facebook community, and for those who have already signed up to our newsletters. And for those who wish to join us online, the links will be posted in the chat at the end. So I'm your host, LA Wilshaw, and for those who participated in the Meet the Women of Formula One back in February will recognise me from that. So hello again. If you missed that particular series or any of the episodes, they are still available to watch on Motorsport UK's YouTube channel. So head over there after this webinar and subscribe to watch them. This episode tonight will also be available there. As you know, this is a webinar and it is being recorded, which means you can't unmute yourselves and you can just see us, but you can communicate through the Q&A feature. So any questions you might have for the ladies or for myself, even though I'm not the expert tonight, it's for our guests, we will try and get to them throughout the session. All of that said, let me introduce you to our wonderful guests tonight. A very good evening to performance psychologist, core mentor and HINSA performance coach, Anne Claessens. Hello, Anne, how are you this evening?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. And very, very excited to join you and enthusiastic to be with you today and hope to share some ideas and why not tools with the great community. So thank you. Yes.
And also a very big welcome to performance manager and coach Tulsi Varsani. Good evening, Tulsi.
Hi, LA. Thank you so much for inviting me on this webinar.
Well, it's my pleasure to see you both again and to be chatting with you both as well this evening. So if we can just start with a rundown really of your roles and perhaps a couple of examples on what you do on a daily basis. And if we come to you first, Tulsi, that would be a really great start.
Yeah, of course. Well, yes, I'm a performance coach and currently I'm doing performance programs for extreme sport athletes, including karting drivers. So I still work with youth, and I started off actually working in the leisure center, and I ended up moving into strength and conditioning. So I worked with children with cerebral palsy, I worked with athletes in rugby, in football, in skiing, gymnastics. So it really, really gave me a breadth of knowledge around sport and specific sporting needs analysis. And then I got my first Formula One role, really officially, as the on-site manager with Mercedes Formula One team. And I was with them for 3 seasons of the championship winning years and leading on health and well-being initiatives factory-wide. And then I got given the opportunity to work with the race teams. So I was working with their testing and training specifically. So that was really interesting, on top of the projects and the management of the gym. And I've also worked with a few junior drivers and Formula 2 teams. So I was working with amateur single-seater racers so they can all start to prepare themselves for race competition, basically. So that's where I'm at the moment.
That's absolutely wonderful. What a great summary. And yeah, what about you, Anne? Tell us all about yourself.
Yes, I am a psychologist and an anthropologist, and I have three roles currently in my life. I work as a psychotherapist on the mental health field, helping people to cope with adversity and build resilience. Another part of my job is a mentor and also coach for people in sport domain, but also with individual and professional, but also individual. And I organize seminaries, workshop, and training also. Yes, for teams and for individuals.
Well, it sounds like you're both incredibly busy.
Yes, yes, right. And it's very, very exciting to accompany people, to guide them to a better version of themselves and to increase their performance also. Yes, it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So Anne, tell us all, what exactly is performance psychology?
Okay, performance psychology studies how our mind, our emotion, our environment and action influence our performance, especially in high demanding contexts. So the aim is to create the right mindset, the right attitudes, the right emotions also, and action to build high performing interaction, yes, with the environment. Yes.
Okay. So how can the discipline contribute to help professionals working under pressure in high demanding contexts like motorsport racing?
Yes, we prepare people, we prepare performers at different level and at different time. So preparation, but also during the race or the performance and after, by reassessing and implement new goals to improve better and better. Another focus is also on the mental health, very, very important as a resource, and also to sustain the motivation to build success and performance. It's easy to success, but to maintain the success on a long term, it's really challenging. So that is performance. Yes.
So regarding the individual contact that you have with, with individual athletes, is have you worked with males and females in the past?
Both, yes, both. And in fact, all are very, very full of strength, motivation. And so in a perfect world, I would like, if I dare, I would like that girls on track did not exist anymore, but just performers on track, for example. Why performance and gender? So yes, women and also men, of course. Yes, it's really important, and we have all our talents.
Yes, I think that it would be great for Girls on Track to sort of always exist, but maybe more of then a celebration of the successful female athletes, especially in motorsport, rather than the push that it is at the moment to obviously propel those women to the top if they can get there.
Exactly, and probably they have another challenge comparing with men, as they need to create a real journey, a real step, yes, a path, yes. So yeah. It's really exciting, and as a coach, it's also a real pleasure to take part to this challenge. Yes. Yes.
Is that part of really what you help any female athletes to do? Because as a female, there's also the psychology behind trying to become a female in motorsport, which the males in motorsport don't even have to consider that, do they?
Yes, and it's a part of the job. And maybe as a female, we have also other elements to put yes on the journey and say yes, but we have also talents and specific talents. Why not? Yes, and we push hard for sure.
well, Tulsi, compared to sort of an individual one-on-one, and you mentioned that you had a team involvement. So what are the differences? Can you tell us more about working with an actual team rather than a one-on-one driver?
Yeah, it was really interesting actually, because I think that your relationships thrive when you work one-on-one, because you can really get to know the in-depth qualities of the character traits, their goals, their purpose. And we know what the ultimate dream is for a driver, right? Is to get into Formula One. But when it came to a team, it's now trying to dissect what each team member, which each mechanic wanted to do, what was their long-term goal. And the thing is, you can't just go straight in there and just go, who are you? What's your purpose? What's your why? Because they're like, what do you want about? Like, shut up. So first it was like, planting that seed, just watering it a couple of times, checking in on them. If they've got injuries, that would all be specific to them. So even though I'm talking about a team circumstance, it was still very much individual. Yeah, everybody's got their own circumstances, their own families, their own issues, especially when it came to injuries and ailments. Like, I would need to look at needs analysis, as I did, looking at what the mechanics did day to day, what they did in the pit stop. And also, for me, it really wasn't about how fast they can be in the pit stop. That was another, that's what the race director was focusing on. That's what the chief mechanic was focusing on. I was focusing on how can they improve their overall health and well-being. So even though I took it as a pragmatic one-to-one approach, generally, what was the overall goal? And I really did have tons of autonomy when it came to Mercedes. So I was able to lead on those testing and training programs. And it started to lead to, various degrees of success. When I first started working with a team, only 13 boys were actually physically training. And it's shocking, right? Because Williams, they're told, oh, you need to go into the gym and you need to train. Whereas at Mercedes, it's like, yeah, so like, this is not compulsory, which was fine. It made my job a little bit challenging. So not only was I looking at the individual aspects, the team purpose, and then I was looking at, okay, well, these guys aren't physically moving. Like, yeah, they're doing their job, but why have they got reoccurring injuries? And let's prevent that from happening. And by the time the year had come around, about 75% of the team ended up participating either in training or some sort of sports outside of what they were doing. So that's a huge degree of difference, and something that we can obviously implement as their lifestyle change. When they're coming home from a really grueling race weekend, can they actually spend time with their kids, or are they too tired? Do they have the energy to actually live life? Because that's what it's about, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably mostly time management more than anything else. And were you sort of helpful in that respect to help people manage their time so they could fit in, their health and well-being?
I think for me, it wasn't really micromanaging what their time schedules were, because they've already, they've been in motorsport for years. Unless the newbies come in and they've only just come into, being a mechanic, these guys have been traveling for years. They know their schedule. They don't want to be talked down to like a child. Sometimes it's required, but generally speaking, they know their schedule. So for me, when I attended race weekends, it was a case of, okay, guys, you're getting good food, you're getting access to the hotel gym, but let's refine it a little bit. Like, I was working with the on-site hospitality team, who were just fantastic. And I was like, okay, well, they've got access to, sugary drinks and sweets and chocolates. So how can I endorse the nutritional value of, maybe they just needed more protein, maybe they needed more hydration, and just making those more accessible. So like, you don't reach out instantly for the sweets. There's actually, you've got an option now. And most of the boys took it. Like, most of the boys did want a protein shake, or they did want a healthy smoothie, or more protein, because they know that that's going to be more sustainable during the course of the weekend, but just generally so they can enjoy life.
Yeah, so was it difficult to sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback there. I'm not sure if anyone, everybody okay? I'm okay. Yeah, I'm not, was it sort of difficult at the beginning to persuade, these gentlemen to do so? And also sort of a bit of a follow on that leads us somewhere else. Are all the teams now, do they all have somebody like yourself, or are some teams still a little bit behind in Formula One? I'm asking for.
Yeah, really good question. So first, I remember going in there, and obviously training wasn't compulsory, testing wasn't compulsory. And the thing is, I can't implement a program unless I've tested. Like, you're basically just throwing mud at a wall and hope it sticks. Like, that's not going to make sense. You need to have a science-based strategic plan. What is the needs analysis? What is the injury history? And then you put a program into place. Otherwise, it's just useless. So for me, I remember there was one mechanic, possibly two, saying, but we're winning, so what's the point of this? So I was like, okay, you're going to have some resistance, right? In any organization, whenever something new is happening, you're always going to have some sort of resistance in the organization. But for me, I already had, my list full regarding the gym, regarding the refurb, regarding the coaches I was managing and the projects I was working on. I didn't really have time to convince them. What I did was I focused on those ones who were open-minded and those ones who did want to improve themselves and gain from this program. So for me, I was like, okay, well, how can I help you? Because they were receptive. And then from that, in turn, they saw results. They would then tell the team about the results. And you can see the results in other people, right? When you see somebody else looking good, feeling good, eating good, you're like, well, I want some of that too. Like, how did he get that way? So for me, it was less about, tooting your own horn and letting the results speak for themselves. And then all of a sudden, those ones who were kind of like the naysayers and a little bit hesitant were a bit like, oh, actually, yeah, what you're doing is pretty good because the other boys are getting really good results. I want that too. And that was what had ended up, giving them that opportunity to get that buy-in, basically. And Ellie, it's funny you say that on your second question, when you say, do all teams adopt this? It's funny because I was one of the first managers working in Formula One, looking after the performance center. And there weren't there was none basically before I started. And then when I started, there were more coaches looking after teams. So you'll see them in the pit lane. You're like, the Ferrari will be warming them up with bands, and you've got like, it's not Renault anymore, it's Alpine, it's Alpine. So they've got their own coach. But it's funny because it's not all Hinsa, it's all individual. And if you look at some of the driver coaches, again, they sometimes are working directly with the drivers, like Danny Rick is, and some of them are working with specific physio, like Lewis is. So it really, really depends upon, what does the team need? What is the benefit of it? And right now, apart from Ferrari, Alpine, I think that's it. I don't think any other coaches are in team sports. So if you're looking for a job, that is obviously an opener.
And Anne, you were doing quite a lot of nodding there, and I'm just wondering if you have anything to contribute to that as well.
Yes, maybe. Performing need many efforts on a long term. So it's really important also to implement leisure and active recovery time with more pleasure and so on, and refocus very often on the goals. Why are you doing that? And so many efforts, and then knowing that motivation increases. So it's important to keep on the view why I am doing that and what's the aim. So with time, yes, we realize small but sustainable steps, and we achieve time after time the journey, and it's great. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, just an additional welcome to some of the people that followed us just a little bit after the introductions. So just to introduce everybody again, it's Anne Classens and Tulsi Vasani, and I'm LA Wilshaw, and this is Motorsport UK, and this is Girls on Track UK as well, bringing you a month's worth of themes on coaching and sports psychology. So welcome to all those who have joined, and please feel free to drop us a question in the Q&A feature there of the webinar. So we're still sort of on the motorsport. Let's stick to this for a little bit longer. And I'd sort of like to talk about more specifics in a way, and I'm sure everybody else is a little bit intrigued as to psychological battles that might go on, and how you might you might help regarding Hamilton versus, you know, Verstappen right now, or Mercedes versus Red Bull, and how do you help the athletes or the drivers overcome that competitive mind game playing? And I'll pop that to Tulsi first.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, it's funny because the team, especially the race team, it was funny because Toto, even in every race brief, he would always say, even though we'd won or we were close to winning, he would always say, what is your counterpart doing in the opposite team? So if I was the only performance coach at Mercedes, what was the performance coach for the team doing at Williams or say Haas? So the thing is, it would be the rival. So who is your rival and how do you compete with them? So for us as individuals, the whole team knew that, whether you're a designer, whether you're an engineer, working in composites, working in HR too, everybody would be, you know, focusing on their purpose. With a race team, it's really, really easy to be competitive because you've got the stats of who's the fastest pit stop. But not only that, they were competing against each other. So during the pit stop practices on a really cold, like January morning in Brackley, we'd be, you know, crammed into this warehouse, and the boys would literally just practice on, you know, on the demo car pit stops, because, you know, you get lazy after Christmas. you pile on a few pounds. They've been absent from the factory, but on the timing board, which you don't get in the racetrack. But on the timing board, you've got how much torque sensor has been used to fit the wheel nut. So the boys who are the machine gunners will actually know, okay, so how strategic have I been? How quick have I been based on that stat? And then you've got the wheel on and the wheel off guys. You will be surprised how competitive these guys are, even between each other. So it's almost like they're just trying to do the best they can as accurately as possible. And then, you know, they're looking at the overall time of the stops. The thing is, when it comes to a race weekend, it's become habitual. Like, you can't retrain that because it's 2.2 seconds. Like, you literally just focus on your thing and get as much as you can done in the best way, and then hope everybody else has done the same thing. I can't remember who quoted this, but somebody said, when you are part of the pit stop, it's about 22 guys having the best possible day all at the same time. And you think about, like, there's a lot of room for error. Like, we're humans, we get things wrong. So in terms of competitiveness, it was always ingrained, like, how can I be better than I was? How can I be better as a team? And then the results will show. Like, there's no point in then saying, I need to have the fastest pit stop, because actually you don't know what the fastest pit stop will be that day. And also how the humidity will affect the wheel nuts. Like, we know what happened to Valtteri Bottas, right?
Yes, we do. And I think that pit stop's still going on, isn't it? I'm not quite as nice. And
The longest pit stop ever.
It is. It was incredibly unfortunate, and that's actually quite heartbreaking to watch that kind of a pit stop. No matter what team you're a fan of or what driver you're a fan of, that was it was just excruciating. Yeah, and I want to sort of move across to not just mind games, but also to consider we seem to be watching quite a few elite athletes right now having moments in very public view. And we've actually had a question in from Paula Calderon, who is Tatiana's sister and coach herself, performance coach. And I really thank you for joining us, Paula. It's a pleasure that you've come along this evening. And also, I've noticed you have got a question in pre this event, and we will get to that too. So Paula's question is regarding Daniel Ricciardo. And I was going to mention this too. There was a little bit of footage from the weekend of when he didn't do great, and it's not, you know, the first race that he's not done great in. And it was quite heartbreaking to watch him almost get out of the car at the end of the race, but didn't. And he had his head in his hands and he was shaking, you know, his head, and he clearly wasn't having a good time. And as well as touching on that and what you may do as a performance coach for somebody in that situation. And Paula also, you know, wanted to ask, do you think there could be external factors such as being so far away from home? You know, what other factors can contribute to that kind of feeling and a public reaction?
Yes, maybe there is a big pressure and big expectation also, and it's not easy to stay focused on the goal and balancing the emotions also. So briefly, maybe we can keep on our mind the thoughts, the belief, the attitude, and so on. And they have a big impact on how we will act. And if you want, I will share with you some exercise after. But not only the thought, also the emotion. And high performers are very sensitive people, often with a very high emotional intelligence. And it's fundamental to adapt to those situations and quickly build responses. So the emotion also may be worked with different tools also, yes. The communication is really important also. And as you say, with the fan, who may one day applause and the day after who's, and it's really difficult to manage. The medias also, who are looking for each behavior, face, smiling or not, and it's great pressure. The relationship, supportive relationship are really and trusty relationship, and we see that, we can observe that, for example, with Lewis and Angela Cullen. It's a great team. All the context contribute to the situation, and so it's really important to cope with an holistic approach. And so if you want just an example for each of you, if you want, a really easy and practical tool. So imagine, who want to do the exercise, imagine just situation 1. You are alone, sitting in a cramped place, and you are going to take several quick, risky decisions. At distance, thousands of people are observing you, some of them with sharp eyes and big expectations about your skills. You know that your action will be followed by applauses, just as I said, or hoots. Okay, how are you feeling now? What are the ideas that come in your mind? Do you perceive body signals? Okay, take a deep breath now and refresh your mind. We are changing the scene. Situation 2. You are sitting now in your seat. There are thousands of people at some distance, but you have created your bubble around you as you want to be totally focused on your goal. You have a rapid thought for your loved ones and smile. You also know that you can count on your body and your mind. Sustainable training helps. You are ready for this exciting challenge, knowing very well what to do and how. Okay, how are you feeling? What are your thoughts? Just know. How is your body? And please, let's compare with your first experience. Have you noticed that it is the same situation, a driver on a pit lane? Probably your thought, your feeling, and your body were different thoughts. So how we interpret the situation determines how we will live it and how we will react or respond to it. So the subjective experience is much more important than the situation itself. And it's just a simple example of a narrative and visualization that we may build with our driver. It's easy to do. And so we can shape the decision, the action also. And there are many, many tools for that. Yes.
Yeah, that's incredible to just have sort of gone through that with you. I kind of felt like I was there. I don't know about how anybody else felt then. And you, you know, you touched on something at the beginning of having the eyes of the world on you. And just last night, you know, we've got the Olympics on right now, and Katarina Johnson-Thompson, who's the British heptathlete, she was describing how in the last Olympics, she was very severely affected by all the eyes looking at her, the expectations, the watching, and, you know, she crumbled. She just didn't do well. And she must have worked very, very hard with her coaches, you know, over the last few years to have come back and to even put in a couple of performances already that are amazing. But what is also quite interesting is somebody like Simone Viles, who's the US gymnast, a 4-time Olympic champion. You know, she withdrew from last Tuesday's team final event and also an individual all round, saying she had to focus on her mental health. And this is perhaps giving us a new kind of elite athlete. Rather than just looking at this absolute perfectionist, we're now looking at a human being that can also be considered as an elite athlete. And I think what you've described there, Anne, is must be, you know, do all coaches have a similar approach to you, to you?
Not necessarily. What is important, of course, is to excel, but I think that perfection is just the name of jail. So excellence, yes, and to improve. Avoid to compare oneself with others, because we haven't control about all, but about our thoughts, yes, of course, and how we can prepare that. And for example, just for your situation, a little of a tool, I appreciate it. What do you see, LA, for example, here? What do you see?
I think I see a dot without my glasses on a blue post-it.
Yes, I will help you. You are right. In fact, we can see just a little yellow circle. Oh, yeah. And say, I need to perform in that point. I need to. It's really important. But if we focus too much on this point, we forget all the big peak. Yes, and so the message is perhaps a balance between expense of energy, but also moment to refresh. And I'm not just a coach, and each athlete is not just an athlete, but a human being. And maybe it's important to reframe that, and by the self-talk, to be kind with oneself. It's really, really important. And to feel other aspect our life also. Because
yes, yeah. Yes. I think we've seen that. We've seen that through somebody like Lewis Hamilton. And I don't know if you can contribute to this as well, Tulsi, of in recent times, he has become a lot more open on social media, even, you know, flicking his hair about in the mirror. That's what he feels like doing, because that's what, you know, 100 million other people do on their social media. Why not? You know, it's lovely to see his dog. It's lovely to see him relaxing and chilling out. And yet he's at the elite, the top of the sport. And we still saw him on Sunday. If for those of us that were watching the Hungarian Grand Prix, he's so overcome with fatigue and the heat and probably the occasion, followed by the race before and the pressures from the crash, of he literally had to hold himself up against the wall of the podium afterwards. And Tulsi, your approach, how would you approach that if he was your driver, if he was, if you were his coach? How would you deal with him after that event, except for helping him recover physically? But how would you help him recover mentally?
Well, this is the thing, and I'm glad that Anna actually brought some of these examples forward, because as a coaching team, that's what you are. You can't be everything to that one driver. And this is where the collaboration comes into place, as what are you really skillful at, and what is your expertise, and what do we need to, or like, who do we need to bring in who can enhance that element? So as a performance coach, you kind of have to be a specialist generalist. And now I'm working on being, unique in my one thing. What is the one thing that I can definitely do? So it's a bit of a black and white scenario, but when it comes to teams or drivers, sometimes, and it's going back to that social media, we put so much pressure on athletes, on teams. We put them on such a high pedestal, and we consider them as superstars, that we forget that they're human beings. And because of social media, it's almost like, when you've got anything, a zoom on your camera, when you zoom in, you see something in finite detail, right? When you're zooming in, you're forgetting that actually that thing isn't just the person. And Lewis Hamilton is not just a driver. He's not just an athlete. There is such a whole host of what he is, what makes him him. And the fact is, we need to kind of zoom out of everything. And the fact that athletes are doing this is they're actually doing it themselves. They're saying, look, I play guitar, I play piano, I do this in my spare time, this is my partner. We are then taking them off the pedestal and realizing that they are human beings. They are vulnerable too, but actually trying to humanize them, to say they're one of us. Like, they're not that special. Like, if we tapped into our potential, we would be capable of so many extraordinary things. And that goes with every single girl on this call, every single woman that's listening. It's, if you just take down your own barriers and your own, idea of perfection, you can then unleash the potential just to go, what, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to go for failure. So for me, going back to your original question, LA, is I would understand what's going on. Like, is it more about he's physically fatigued? Is he mentally fatigued? Because they're two different things. What does he need in a physical or psychological aspect, but also what does he need going forward? So this is a really good lesson to look back and just go, okay, do we need to bring in a team psychologist? Do we need to bring in somebody to support you, not just for today, but for a longer term period? And then it's working with that athlete or the team to say, okay, well, it's okay to be vulnerable, and creating a judgment-free zone that they're able to do that. And I think you need to have that with your athletes. And I have that with every one of my clients, because there's that confidentiality. You're working as a professional here. You need to maintain that professionalism and allow them to open up, because the biggest thing is, if they don't tell you they're suffering or they have an injury, it could be miles worse. It could be much, much detrimental to their career than if they actually took you aside. And this is why we cultivate those relationships. Anna, you'll agree, right? We cultivate the relationships so they can be open and honest with us, so we can tackle those things early on, so it doesn't become catastrophic.
Yeah, I think that's a really lovely sort of thing to think about for everybody, including myself, that you see people at the top of their game, at the top of their sport, and it sometimes you feel like it's them and us, and there's a void. But really, that void isn't necessarily that they're absolutely, they're born like Superman. It's the fact that they have people like you, experts all around them, and training and practice. And if anybody, whatever anybody watching, male or female this evening, whatever your goals are and your dreams are, you just need to find a way to find the support and find the training and the mental health side, which is very important, and perhaps a coach of your own, even a mentor of your own, to become just as elite as not necessarily, 7 times world champion Formula One driver, but that kind of eliteness in your own life and in your own career.
But I think it's good to remind people, especially on this call, that no success has been individual. They've all been part of a team. Either their families helped them, they've had doctors around them, they've had sponsorship. You can't make it by yourself. Like, if you think you can make it by yourself, you're going to be falling down quick, because the team is what gets you there. It's the support that actually brings you down and grounds you to then enable you to propel forward.
Now, I'd like, there's a question come in from Florencia. She said, "Hi ladies," and she said, "We know accidents and collisions are pretty common in motorsport. How does that impact on the athletes, and in which way would you work with them to help them overcome those impactful situations, and whether that's through the psychology of having an accident, or whether that's through perhaps somebody like Romain Grosjean last season in the Bahrain Grand Prix, when he actually had physical injuries too to overcome." So Anne, how would you approach that?
Yes, first of all, I avoid any judgment. So for example, Grosjean, how is it for him? Does he see his situation? And just accept his thought, his own criticism, and after a moment, okay, I can hear what you say, I can hear your experience, but the facts are these and these. And so reduce or often the guilty or the shame, reduce the pressure, and remind there is so many elements to gear at the same time, to manage. And then you did your best. You did your best, and you controlled all the controllables, but other elements came, and it's so. So now what about you? How are you? What is difficult for you? And there is a place for that, to reflect, to feel also, and to name the feeling. It's really important to increase the awareness. And then when we are more conscious, we can work on them and direct them in a right way to be more resilient, for example. So take a moment to recover, after that to welcome what the person lives, and after build another future, considering that, yes, there are also positive elements in that. So how can we include them in the future?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, we had some questions from participants that registered upon registration to this webinar. There was a facility to ask some questions, and we thank you all for contributing tonight and for the questions on your registration. And Beatrice Cabral, and please excuse my pronunciation if I don't pronounce anyone's names correctly. What is the most important part of your job, Tulsi?
Oh, most important part of my job, getting results. I think that if I don't get results, it's pretty poor on me. So it's very much a case of, I'm going into a performance environment. What is the needs analysis of that individual? What is the overarching goal? So we would have some consultation regarding, what do they want to achieve with me, and how can we get there together? And it's a case of, I'm not going to baby that person. It's you need to be purposeful and, contribute, especially with attitude and compliance. Like, they need to put that forward, and then I can put the program in place that can lead to that success. So for me, yeah, it's more about how do I dissect those needs, and then I would create that short-term, long-term achievable goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of feel that, you know, from quite a number of years ago now, you know, to be an athlete was mostly about the physical, and it does seem to be these days that it is more about the psychology, it's more about the psychological, that we're moving into this area to have a healthy mind. A healthy mind is as important and as vital as a healthy body. And some of the other questions we were asked prior to the webinar starting was, and I'll try and maybe combine a couple, from Priska Manzoni, who wants to sort of know about the right balance between physical and mental health, which I know you touched on a little bit, Anne, anyway. So maybe in a moment you can elaborate again a little bit more. And also, again from Paula Calderon, so hi again, Paula. How would you introduce sports psychology to someone who perhaps sees mental health as a taboo topic? Because it can still, you know, not everyone's still accepting of mental health, are they? Not you know, into the degrees that some are.
Yes, perhaps with this question, yes. An example, some people choose to drive, a golf car on the track, while other favor a Formula One, all with the wish to win the race. So it's okay. And why not then talk about research, observation, facts, and invite them, the person who are still a bit more skeptic, and we invite them kindly to observe the results by themselves. Yes, yes. They are a great proof-value. It's many ads when we consider the mind, the emotion, to focus on the goal. They are very supportive. Yes. And for the first question, yes, I think that health, body, but also mental health is just different parts of a whole, and they interact constantly, yes. So, for example, imagine I am anxious mind. Okay, when I'm anxious, maybe my sleep is not good. If my sleep is not good, maybe I will not very well focused on my task, and I will have an injury. Maybe also I will be more sensitive, yes, with other, and that will generate conflicts. So that have also impact on our context and relationships. Then yes, all is in all. And another example, when you are suffering and you book a rendezvous with your doctor, maybe in the waiting room your symptoms are decreasing, but why? Okay, so in fact it's just a whole thing. Yes, maybe Tulsi, would you like to add something?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I agree with mental and physical. They're married to one another. Like it's not one or the other, it has to be united. And for me, I was reflecting back on working in the gym. A lot of people forget that it's mostly mental. I know it's sometimes about lifting weight, but majority of times what I work with my clients with is we don't want to be remaining in the safe zone, that area that they can do things very well. It's moving to that risky part of, you know, I'm not sure you can lift it. Well, they think that I'm not sure I can lift it. And a case of, well, I'd like to stay in this easy zone because I know I can lift that very well. What I end up doing with clients is working with them and looking at, okay, so the weight has gone up, your skill level needs to match it. And then when you get to this point, your weight has to go up, so your skill level has to match it. So you're never in this equilibrium. I know we talk about balance all the time, but you're never in an equilibrium when it comes to the weight room, because you're trying to push past those boundaries. And there's been so many occasions where I've had athletes come to me and saying, I can't do this. But why? What is limiting you in your head that makes you not want to lift this? And I had a girl in the gym, and this is so good because she's like 5'2", very petite. And I've been working with her for quite a bit, and she works at Mercedes. And we were just going through her training program. And one time she was like, I really want to reach 100K, lift. And I was like, that's a lot of weight. Like, what do you mean you want to hit? Why? Oh, because I want to prove the other boys wrong. Like, this is the thing in Mercedes, right? You think that everybody's competitive. It's true. Everybody's competitive about everything. So I was like, okay, well, we can incorporate that with your other training. And she got to a lift, and obviously we worked our way up to it. She got to a lift and she was like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. And she got so frustrated with herself. And I'm like, wait a second, what happened? I was like, walk away, just walk away. And some people who don't know me might be like, oh, she's like really strict. What do you mean? She walked away. She went to go get some water. And I was like, right, get your head in the game. You can do this because you lifted something so close before. And I know she had it in her. It wasn't a case of a cheerleader. It's saying, get out of your head because you can lift it. 2 seconds later, what does she do? She lifted 105K. It's like, this is ridiculous because it's not about physical attributes. Yes, we're creating a foundation. We're making sure that you've got good movement skills. How does that get you into those competitive environments? They say training should be harder than the competition, right? That's what we train for. But mentally, what happens in the weight room is you overcome those risks, you overcome those battles internally, and you end up building that inner self-confidence, not in an egotistical way, but you end up being more determined and more assertive in your own skill because you've been tested in a controlled environment. Now you're able to be tested in that external environment. And like Anna said, if that goes wrong, okay, we'll deal with it. But right now, you're capable of dealing with whichever situation may arise.
Yeah, well, I hope that's answered. We have some similar questions that have come in. Leah Afriani, who did actually ask about the mental, how you dealt with the mental health of drivers, and I feel like we've answered that for Leah, and hopefully some of the other questions have been answered. And also about mental health still being a taboo subject, which Anna Carolina Souza asked. So yeah, I feel like we've answered those too. And so I think a question for both of you, and we'll start with Anna first, is what is the most stressful part of your jobs and how do you cope with it? Because one of the questions I had as well, which is linked, is how do you look after yourself too? So we'll start with Anna. Sorry, Anna.
Yes.
I changed your name.
Nice. Yes. Maybe about me. Yes, I am passionate, so it's often difficult for me to prior. Yes, what? Yes, my priorities. Yes, and so yes, I have developed tools, especially for me also to manage that. For example, every morning I realize some physical exercises, and at the same time I take a short break and decide what are my priorities, what are my essentials today, because I know very well if I realize well those 3 or 4 things, all my day will be one. So yes, I focus my energy on 2 or 3 things, and after there are minor, important but minor elements and so on. Yes, so I try to keep focus, but sometimes it's really stressful and also frustrating because there are so many things to live, to share with people also. Yes.
Yeah, and Tulsi, I want you to answer too, and maybe even consider the balance, the work-home life balance too, with friends and family, as well as answering the question itself.
I'm only laughing because I had no work-life balance. Like I'm like Anne. I was like, you know, when you're passionate about something, you want to delve into it, and you end up doing it in your, you know, personal time. And for me, like, it was all Mercedes. I would wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I'd be in the gym. I wouldn't leave until like 9 o'clock. Sometimes I've got like some of the directors wanting my support because they finished late. And I'm like, yeah, I can do it all. And then, you know, managing the gym, and then obviously the race team, and more things came up. I couldn't say no. No, I couldn't say no. I think I had to learn how to say no, but it only came to a point where I was on the verge of a breakdown. And that was the hardest lesson for me. That was the biggest challenge, to say I was in a job that I loved. I wanted to work in motorsport since I was probably 14. And I'm finally in a job. I'm in a world championship winning team. Like, I need to keep proving myself. And it was just in my head. Like, there's a reason why I'm there. You know, I've got 12 years plus of experience, and I still needed to prove myself. But also, it wasn't just for me. It was a case of, you know, what more can I do? Because this role was new, you know, so I wanted to give my best self. And when you're wanting to, you know, when you're passionate and you want to give your best self, you end up compromising time with the family, time with personal relationships. Like, that didn't even exist to me. Like, boys didn't even come into the picture. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should start to prioritize. And that's when I made a conscious effort to actually say, no, I'm going to finish at this time. I'm not going to check my emails just before bed. You know, it's making a conscious, active choice to put yourself first. Because the thing is, if you don't fill up your cup, like they say, you put your own oxygen mask on before you put the person's oxygen mask on. So fill your cup up first. And if you're running dry, well, you can't, you know, overflow and give to others. So you need to take care of your own physical health, your own mental health. And as a coach, you would think that, you know, a performance coach has everything and they're ideal, but we still need to advocate having that holistic balance. You know, is your general health well? Is your sleep well? Is your nutrition? Is your mental health? Is your physical health well? And you're just making sure that you're going through those cycles and taking care of yourself. Because as I said earlier, you're not helping anyone if you can't help yourself.
Yes, 100%. So we are coming very close to the end, and it has been such an amazing hour, and we need so much more time. So I'm going to sort of merge quite a few of the same or similar questions together, really, for you know, as we come to a close. And so we have Raquel Rauber, who is at she says she's a medical student. We also have Shano Sidhu, who is interested in getting into coaching in the field of Formula One. Catherine McLean, asking what degrees you need. Harriet Wills, who has a psychology BSc and MSc, but never studied sports psychology. So the same question, and you know what's coming, is how do I, not I, but these ladies and any gentlemen that are watching, how do they break into the industry? What degrees do they need? What do they need to be doing themselves? I'm sorry, that's for either of you. Anne, we'll go to Anne.
Yes. Maybe, first of all, follow your passion. So studies what does really import for you, because life is really surprising. So maybe you will find the good way to meet your passion. Okay, so yes, studies in the matter that you appreciate, and after no, not after, at the same time, create relationships, knock at doors frequently, and don't forget your aim. What is your outcome goal? And to reach or lead it, you need to realize process goal, step after step. And so why not keep on training yourself, meeting other people, chatting, like following webinar and so on. So just keep on the source and share, yes, and keep on learning also, I think so. It's just that, yes.
And
it's
so,
not just one way, many ways, yes.
Yeah, and so I think the girls that are already on some kind of path, or the boys, I can't see everybody, so sorry, who's here, but I think those, you know, just keep going, and you know, you can even some skills are transferable, or you can extend, or you know, wherever you need to be. I think, you know, even you're right, reaching out, contacting, what do people actually want from you? You know, it's a little bit like if you're on LinkedIn, isn't it? And you have this, the person that's posting a job, they have those skills that they want you to have for their job. So are you ticking the boxes? And if you're not, what do you need to do? You know, because we don't just have girls from the UK that are watching this evening. We've got girls all around the world that are tuning in, and gentlemen that are, and boys that are watching. So look to your country, look to your universities, you know, and see what is offered, because degrees and qualifications are very different in each country.
And why not also be coach, to understand better who you are and what you really want to achieve in your life. It's really important, because often we have belief, or it's vague, and so when we meet someone who has competencies, it's easier to find the way. Yes.
And Tulsi, what's your advice for everybody that wants to be in your shoes?
Anne gave such a brilliant answer, to be fair. It's hard to follow that, because it's funny, I can be strategic and say, this is the degree you need, this is the qualification, this is what's considered to be certified in the UK. But as you said, LA, we're looking at people all over Europe and possibly worldwide. So I feel like Anne really gave a perfect answer, just to say, yes, you've got your goal, but don't be afraid to explore on the journey. So you might have made a goal like 5 years ago, and it's okay to change your mind. Like, you may want to work in Formula One as a performance coach, but you might think, well, actually, maybe I want to be a motorsport specialist and include not just Formula One drivers, but F2 drivers and, you know, BTCC drivers, because there's such a wide range of motorsport skills out there. Like, even in the W series, you're still going to build that expertise if you don't focus on one channel. And then again, if you're aiming for perfection, like, how likely is that going to be achieved, and will you be disappointed? It's okay to change your mind. So just have an awareness of, yeah, go through your degree, find out the specialist in that area. You may not want to be a performance coach. You may want to be a nutritionist or a dietitian or a psychologist or a doctor. And all of those have their own niches. And when you found that niche, you'll be able to find your people. And as Anne said, if you're networking, you're going to find your people that you work with. And just as a last resort, LA, when you were talking about applying for jobs, well, girls and women only apply for jobs when they meet 60% of the criteria. 100% of the criteria. And men will apply if they only meet 60% of the criteria, which means if women don't tick every single box, they won't apply. Whereas men are like, oh, I'm almost there. And they'll apply anyway. And more likely they're going to get the job. So take more risks. Even if you don't hit, maybe only 7 out of the 10 criteria, apply anyway, because you never know. And that's the thing with Formula One. They're probably looking, but they're not actually advertising. Get to know people, because then that's where you're going to get to know, what's happening on the inside, what roles are coming up. And those are the opportunities that you really need to grasp a hold of and be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and I think, like most people want to employ someone or have somebody working with them that does have a great amount of greater experience. So if somebody does it is just absolutely motorsport crazy to not just think about Formula One, because what can you offer a Formula One driver if you haven't actually worked in Formula One yet? So, you know, it's a case of gaining the experience around, and what might be your passion, because you might love motor racing and love Formula One, might not necessarily be the career that you end up doing. You might have a separate passion for, as you say, some kind of subject at university or within a course that you never thought that you had an interest in at all, and you think, oh wow, this I love this. Yeah, I'm still going to watch the race on a Sunday, but hey, I'm going off in this direction now.
Yes, but in fact, during my adolescence, I dreamt to be a Formula One driver, and my family said, "Oh no, it's not serious for a girl." Okay, then I studied psychology, but it's the same. In fact, I was very, very interested, yes, to understand how people act and think under pressure. And now, by my coaching, it's just what I do. And so with athletes. So yes, I'm not so far. Yes,
absolutely. Well, I thank you to everyone for staying behind us a little bit longer, you know, including Anne and Tulsi, and for everybody else that's hung on there. We just had so many questions to get through there that I felt that I wanted to try and get almost everybody's in, but we didn't manage to get through everybody, and there is a way that maybe you can have your questions answered. So we are coming to a close. So first of all, thank you, Anne. Thank you, Tulsi, for your time and amazing expertise this evening.
Thanks, Ale. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, it was a great pleasure. And also thank you to Susie Wolf and all the great team of Girls on Track. It's really great. Thanks. Yeah. And greetings from Belgium.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you all for watching and for your contributions. And thank you to Girls on Track UK and Motorsport UK for making this evening possible, and for the rest of this month as well, with their coaching and sports psychology theme. So please, if you have any other questions, if you wish to connect with people, join our Girls on Track UK community on Facebook by copying the links that are being posted in the chat, and Motorsport UK as well, where you can follow, subscribe, you can like all the posts, you can connect with people and get to know others. And you never know what opportunities can present themselves by creating contacts today. Just very briefly, there's a bunch of girls that happen to have the same interests in motorsport that watched the earlier the Meet the Women of Formula One in February, and they are now part of their own interviewing blog podcast team, and they've all come together because of these events, and they've connected online, and they've connected through the Girls on Track UK Facebook community. So please join us over there and on the YouTube and Instagram and Twitter as well. So thank you all. Thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you all soon, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.